So, the trans men gotcha. You will see quite often this situation. They say they're going to ban trans women from women's spaces, and then someone says, aha, but that would mean they have to force trans men into the women's spaces because you think they are women. So that means you will have men in the women's spaces, which is exactly the thing you said you didn't want. Get wrecked. And yeah, if the people you're talking to about any kind of consistent worldview, then yes, what you said is true. Sometimes they will write laws that say that. They will create a law because they're stupid. But what you will actually find is they say, well, we also want to ban trans men from women's spaces too. And we also want to ban trans women from men's spaces. And you'd be like, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. They don't give a fuck. They do not care. That once you understand that the single sole guiding principle of the anti-trans movement, the gender criticals, the Republicans, whoever, is trans bad, then what they're saying and doing makes sense. But if you try and take them at their word or treat one of their statements as some logically consistent position on which they're going to build their others upon, what they say will make no sense and it'll keep contradicting itself. And this isn't just me saying this. Mayor Forstater has basically said the same thing that I am now saying. Mayor Forstater is one of the leading gender critical people in the UK. She isn't one of these idiots who just says stuff. She's thought about her position. She's got advanced gender critical apologetics. She has rubbish positions. She still has logical inconsistencies. For example, she couldn't give a definition of biological sex which made any sense. I think she would probably go for chromosomes because she thinks Castor Semenya is a man. Anyway, she has basically said the same thing. She's calling it the trans man gotcha. And here is the person, some people, she's using examples saying, oh, doesn't that mean that trans men should have to use the women's faces? And she says, the answer is no. The Equality Act exemptions mean that both sex discrimination and gender reassignment discrimination prohibitions are disapplied to service provider and can lawfully exclude both. They don't have to, but they can. A woman who identifies as a man should be in a women's prison and risk assessed as female in a public space. Oh God, it's hard to read when they say everything upside down. Doesn't want to. There are often unisex options. Not being allowed into the men's by rule does not mean you have the right to go into the ladies, and vice versa. That may seem unfair, but these are life choices people make. If you make extreme efforts to look like a man, don't be surprised if you're denied entrance to the ladies. And vice versa, if you make extreme efforts to look like a woman, don't be surprised if you're denied entrance to the men's. This is also what the Equality and Human Rights Commission has been saying. This is what probably is going to be in their guidance. This is what the court ruled. Basically, we want to ban trans women from women's spaces and men's spaces, and we want to ban trans men from women's spaces and men's spaces. Oh yeah, we can make a third option, which is down the hall for all trans people, whether you're men, women, or whatever, who cares? Just mingle amongst yourselves. You're subhuman to us, so it doesn't actually matter if there's any kind of sexism there at all. As long as the cis people have their own cis-only spaces. That is literally what they're creating here. It's what Mayor Forstater wants. Trans bad is the underlying value here. Me and her are in agreement on the gender critical position here. The difference is I think it's immoral and horrible and hateful, and she doesn't. And the reason for that is I think trans people are people, and she doesn't. That's it. It's this is a value different. And the rank and file gender critical grunts who send you death threats or whatever, they will contradict this all the time. You'll get one of them in 1 minute will say, of course, I will allow any trans men into a woman's space because they are my sisters or something garbage like that. And then the next minute, you show them a picture of a trans man and you'll be like, they'll be like, that's a man, get them out. And you'll be like, oh, you just contradicted yourself. They don't care. They don't care about contradicting themselves. That's not an important part of their worldview, being logically consistent. If they cared about being logically consistent, they would be skeptics. They would inevitably become feminists and end up at the trans rights position. Like, that's where you get to. You don't get there instantly, always. It can take a while, but that is where you get to. If you don't care about, like, if consistency is a fucking burden, like, it can be. Sometimes you think something, or you have some gut feeling, and then someone points out that it's logically contradictory with something else you've said or done. Man, like, I've had that a few times in my life. And it's how I got to the position of supporting gay rights. It's then how I got to the position of supporting women's rights. It's then how I got to the position of supporting trans rights. And then there's then how I came out, in that order. But it's stressful. It's time consuming. It's a lot of work to like reevaluate your whole system. It often knocks down all these other dominoes, like, and then you get to a position where someone will like ask you your view on something, and you're like, I just don't know, because I haven't resolved this yet, and I don't have enough information, and they sound like an idiot, and you've backtracked on something. Like, being consistent is hard work, and it is a burden. It's the morally correct thing to do, and I couldn't do it. I can't help wanting to be consistent, even when it leads to things that feel immoral to me. When I first got into talking about trans rights, I went proper nosedive into the gender critical position to see if it was true or not. And some of the things they said at first on the surface seemed to make sense. And I was like, man, it feels like I'm coming to a conclusion, or at least some of the conclusion is pointing in the direction of a position I feel is immoral. But if that's true, then that's just going to have to be the position I take. I carried on delving into it and found out that actually it's all a big contradictory mess. But, which was turned out good for me this time. But maybe there are some things that are consistent which are not morally nice. But gender criticals don't care about that. They don't care about... Trans bad is the top position. It's their basic premise, and anything else will spring out from that. And if anything ever contradicts that, then it is wrong. And it doesn't matter if they hold two mutually exclusive positions at once, because as long as trans bad is true, all the rest, who cares? So the trans man gotcha, I know where it's coming from, and it may be to cis people who aren't like overtly transphobic, they're not gender critical, they're just normal people. Maybe if you point that out, they'll be like, oh yeah, that doesn't really work, does it? And that's fine. I'm not saying you can never say that, like the classic posting pictures of trans men and being like, where should they be? That's not always terrible. It's good for passers-by. But like, if you think you're going to get someone like Maya Forstater with this, like, she's one step ahead of you, because she's already openly saying all trans people should be just banned from public spaces. She doesn't give a fuck. Like, they don't care. So you just have to be aware of that. She's not an outlier. She's not like a fringe thinker. She like represents the core of the gender critical movement. No gender critical is gonna like come for her. So yeah, if you're trying to explain something to someone, that's fine. If you think you're dunking on one of these more like alpha tier gender criticals, like, the way that you dunk on them is to show other people that their views are immoral. What this will mean is that trans people are just second-class citizens. They can't go to the men's, they can't go to the women's. They might say, oh, there could be third spaces. There are almost never third spaces. Nowhere is building third spaces. It will just mean trans people can't go to the toilet. I mean, like if they worked in a pub, they couldn't go to the toilet while they're at work. If they have a 12-hour shift, then get fucked. So that would obviously mean they couldn't work there. So then trans people are excluded from society. This is the kind of thing you need to push back against them. Not just think that some kind of picture of a trans man is going to work as a dunk. She doesn't care. She doesn't want any trans people in society.